What's up, everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome to another edition of Track Walk in MX Simulator, where today I'm going to be playing the 2017 Supercross de Paris track, which is taking place in, here we go, time for a butchering of names. It is being held in the U Arena this year, which I don't know what U is in French, but I would assume it's pretty close to what English is in some sense. Maybe it's like the U Arena or something, which is in Nanterre, Paris, France. So it's actually like really not too far away from the like main downtown area of Paris, which is great because last year and the year before that, and I think the year before that too, it was in Lille, or Lille, whatever you want to call it. Some people were calling it Lily, which was like 2 hours away, and they were somehow still getting away with calling it the Paris-Lille Supercross, which it was definitely not the Paris Supercross anymore. But it's back in Paris now. It's in an arena that's a little bit bigger than where it used to be held in Bercy, and yeah, it should be another exciting one. It's not this weekend, but I believe the next weekend. Maybe it is this weekend. I don't know. I'm so off with my weeks. I barely know what month it is anymore. And this track was created by one Stephen Barrington. No, wait, was it Barrington? It was the RF track crew, or supposedly it helped out with it, and the EMF guys also got in and helped with it. So maybe it was actually an EMF production. I don't know. Whatever it is, the EMF guys are hosting another race on it, much like the Monster Cup race, which happened a few weeks ago. This one has yet to happen, I believe. It might be happening tonight. I don't know. I'm so off. But the point is that this track is a replica of the actual track, which will be held, you know, for the Paris Day Supercross, whatever you want to call it, race. And it should be a pretty good race this year. You know, formerly Bercy, formerly Lille, now just the Supercross de Paris, is a really exciting race every year. It's one of the biggest of the off-season. That is like the flyaway off-season races that these guys do. We just had the AUS-X Open last weekend, which, spoiler alert, Jason Anderson won, going 2-1. Dean Wilson went, I believe, 1-2 for second. And that is, you know, the 2 nights of racing. Paris Supercross is, again, I believe, 2 nights of racing like it has been in the past. They're also going to have the Super Pole event and a really good host of riders, honestly. Probably the quote-unquote headliner of it is French. I don't know if you would call him a French hero, because for some reason the French Federation doesn't seem to get along with him very well. But Marvin Musquin will be racing this race, and unless catastrophe or something weird happens, it seems pretty likely that he's also going to win this race. Some of the main competition he'll be facing against, Cole Steely is going. Dean Wilson is also going. Zach Osborne will be there, although I think he might be on a 250F. I don't think he'll be racing the Prince of Paris class, but he might be. RJ Hampshire was just announced that he will be going. Former MX2 world champion Jordi Tixier will be there. So it's a pretty good like little group of riders that are going. Not necessarily like the giant names that we've seen in the past go. No Eli Tomac this year. Ken Roxon still kind of recovering from injury, will not be racing. Because like in the past, we've seen guys like Jeremy McGrath go. It's actually been a little while since we've seen like a real big name go. I don't think Stu ever went, nor did Reed. So McGrath might have been like the last time like a really big name went, until Eli went a couple years ago. And raced Lille. So, like I said, it just seems like it's going to be a Marvin kind of weekend, which would be great for French fans to see a French guy win it on home soil. If I remember correctly, the last French rider to win the Paris Supercross was David Villemin, but I could be shooting myself in the foot because I remember Porcel doing good there a couple years. But I think Villemin was the last French rider to win it. Either way, French rider, French soil, French fans, probably going to be going bananas for Marvin. Whether or not he gets along well with the French Federation or not, I don't know. So it should be a good one, and this track is pretty interesting, I guess. The good thing about it that I like is that it's not as cramped and tight as the old Bercy Arena, so it opened up the track design a little bit more, but it also doesn't seem like it's any bigger than the Lille Arena was, which already wasn't that big. They always had kind of a cramped track, and it seemed like they were kind of limited with design on a couple aspects. So it's not like giant, it's not like a huge floor to make one of the biggest Supercross tracks ever, but it does seem like pretty typical, I guess would be the right word, for like a Supercross layout. Lap times are a little bit shorter, I think, than you would expect. Like, I've only been able to get down into the 49s, but I'd assume that these guys on this tighter of a track, and usually with some pretty decent dirt in Paris, that they would be able to probably crack into the low 40s just based on how quick and short this layout is. But at least it's something different. I always felt like Bercy restricted what they could do rhythm lane wise, and like this one at least has a cool little like dragon's back, a table off, and then like you have 3 singles in a row, another table and 2 singles. Like that's a couple different options. Like one of the lines I just did right there, I'll try to do a different line next lap. I feel like it opens it up a little bit more to be creative, which Musquin is probably one of the most creative Supercross riders that currently races. He has a really good time of finding lines that not many people are hitting and making them really fast. So it'd be kind of cool to see you know, what everybody's able to do and maybe what Marvin's able to do a little bit different. A lot of talk about Marvin maybe being the prime candidate to be like the lead contender for like the Supercross championship this year. I'm not too sure if I'm sold on that boat just yet, but he has been riding very well of late, obviously winning the Monster Million and then Red Bull Straight Rhythm in a clean sweep, and now he's going to come here and face you know, I guess, you know, Seeley and Wilson they're good riders. I'm not saying anything bad about them, and I hope that they make it challenging, but I mean, if we're being honest, Marvin is kind of on the next step above those guys right now in what I would consider to be like the Tomac, Roczen, Musquin level, and I just don't see him really being dethroned on home soil against guys that in the USA he pretty much consistently beats every weekend anyway. Although Wilson has looked pretty good lately, I will say. No idea where Seeley's head is at after Motocross the Nations, but he's always good at Supercross anyway, so I don't think it's going to be like any issue for him getting back on the bike and trying to figure things out. But Wilson looked really good in Australia this past weekend, and I just expect to see him kind of have like almost a breakout year coming up anyway. Has a full year under his belt of Supercross experience now, which he didn't have before. He had two seasons with Red Bull KTM where it resulted in torn ACLs really quickly, and now he, you know, raced 4 races on a privateer Yamaha and then the rest of the 13 on a factory Husky. So he doesn't really have the full 17 rounds under his belt on the factory Husky, but he seems well situated within that team. And I mean, if we're being honest, you know, Wilson was a guy that, you know, took it to Eli Tomac when they raced together and could beat Marvin Musquin quite often on his good days and stuff like that. So, you know, Wilson knows how to race those guys, and this year could be one of those years where he kind of figures it out. But I still just kind of see him being right off the pace just a little bit, like maybe giving Anderson some fits here and there, being teammates and all. But I feel like it's going to be, you know, like top rung, Roczen, Musquin, Eli, Anderson just like right there, and then maybe like 6 or 7 guys, including Wilson, that could maybe challenge for wins on occasion, but realistically speaking are probably just going to finish like right in that 4th to 5th spot on a good night. And you know, that'll be something that we'll have to kind of watch as the season progresses, or as the season starts, I should say, because it hasn't even started yet. But I'm just kind of thinking ahead to 2018 Supercross and kind of trying to make some bold predictions based off of some of these races we've already seen. Ozex Open being one, and now we're going to have the Supercross de Paris. Like I said, cool event, cool track, whole 9 yards. And cool VMF to continue in the off season with putting stuff on like this, you know, the Monster Cup thing that they did, now the Supercross de Paris, and I think they had like a French Motocross Cup going on and a couple different things. There's also a couple of different off-season races going on in Sim, so it's not completely dead, but it just seems like every year in Sim, really, that, you know, once November, December hits, there's not a ton of people playing right around the time of Christmas. More and more people get into it, and you start seeing the servers filling up with people testing for Supercross, and then Anaheim 1 is usually just like an explosion of people playing Sim again. So we'll see if that's the case this year, but right now it is quite dead. Not a lot going on. Every time I log on to the forums anymore to read what's been going on, I haven't missed much. So dropped in, saw that this had popped up, wanted to do a video on it. Haven't done track walk in almost 2 weeks now, so figured now would be a good time as any to knuckle down, do a little sim riding, and try out a track that I was kind of excited to see in the first place. I had seen the track layout once already, but I kind of forgot about it until I saw that the track was available in Sim, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's coming up real quick. I wonder what the track looks like, and downloaded it, and I like it so far. One of the main complaints seems to be this whoop section, which it is tricky. It's kind of small by most current whoop section standards that we see in MX Simulator, which makes it a little tough because the second you get a little out of shape, it's nearly impossible to save because the next whoop has already bit you in the butt before you even realize you were swapping, which is why they usually build bigger whoops in this game. But I feel like it's one of those sets of whoops that requires a little bit more technique than just like first gear, lean back, wide open. I do have to hit him in first because the 450 speed is just a little too much to lug it in second or third. I hit him in fourth once and it worked, but it just felt slower. So I hit him in first, and I kind of like 3/4 throttle it, and it seems to work the best. Just offering advice to people who are playing this and complaining about the whoops, really, because the rest of the track is pretty straightforward. Some of the rhythm sections are a little bit imperfect, I guess would be the right term, but you can kind of get the hang of it. It's really the whoops that seem to be biting people the most, and that would just be my advice. Go into them, kind of the first 3 or 4, really focus on just like almost like pumping through them a little bit, not even going like barely half throttle, and just getting the body to kind of move through the whoops a little bit. And then once you get to about the 4th or 5th, you can kind of throttle up a little bit more, get to 3/4, almost full throttle, and feel it coming into the corner a little bit more. But just be careful as well, because the last 2 or 3 whoops also tend to kick you, or they have kicked me a few times. So there's the potential that they will do that again if you're not really paying that much attention. But inside doesn't really work in this corner. You definitely have to go outside and get like a good straight run into the whoops. But you can kind of hear going through the whoops what the bike sounds like. At the beginning it's a little not as powerful, and then I ramp it up, but it's first gear the whole time. On a 250F you could probably do that same technique in second gear and get away with it, but every time I've ever ridden a 250F in Supercross, I've been horrible in the whoops. Like the only bike I've ever been good on in the whoops in game has been a 450. Even this year on the 252 stroke that I raced in Supercross, I was not that good. So usually my 450 techniques are the only good ones. So don't listen too much to my 250F advice, because it's not something that I've ever been that great at. But yeah, I'm just gonna wrap up playing here, one more lap, and just kind of give you guys a little bit more action here. But yeah, this is Paris de Supercross, or Supercross de Paris, whichever one you want to call it, track in MX Simulator. If you guys want to play this track, you can download it in the description below, as always with any of our track walk videos. But you can also like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are over 30,000 subscribers and still counting. It's ridiculous. Love talking to you guys every day though when you guys post comments, and I try to get back to them as quick as I can, obviously, but when you guys do comment, I always love reading what you guys have to say, what your thoughts are on either the track or the video. And yeah, thank you guys again for so much support over the almost 3 years that SYS has been around. But this is the Supercross de Paris track in MX Simulator, another edition of track walk in the books. And I hope to see you guys in all of our future videos. But for now, Kellen here on Start Your Systems is going to say so long for now.